Well, welcome everyone. This is the Iowa Gravel Series Podium podcast. My name is Chris McQueen. I am your host, and today we have a fantastic group of amazing female athletes. We have Laura, Ashley, and Karmen, our podium winners from the recent 2022 Glenwood Gravel, and we are so grateful to have them. We're going to talk about how you get into cycling and specifically gravel, what you do to train, and a little bit about the series. We also want to talk about like this thing with women in gravel and how to get involved. So we hope we got a great show for you. So first off, big thank you to Laura and Ashley and Karmen for being here. We've got it. This is going to be a fun episode. We have cats. We have folks dialing in from Hy-Vees in the middle of Atlantic, Iowa. It's going to be great. This show's going to have everything. So, Laura, Ashley, Karmen, thank you for being here.
You bet.
You bet.
All right. Well, to get us started, let's do a little bit of an intro here, and we'll start with hey, what's your name, and specifically just kind of like how you first got into cycling in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be gravel, but curious kind of like what got you started, and we'll go in kind of a little bit of reverse order here. We'll go Karmen and then Ashley and then Laura. That work?
Yeah. Sure.
Karmen, how did you get involved in cycling?
I liked riding my bike ever since I was just a kid, and then I more specifically kind of got the bug for mountain biking at first, and then did a lot of gravel road training as part of that, and heard about, I can't think of the name of the race now, heard about a gravel race down in the Ozarks, and so it was a 50-mile thing, and so I decided to go down and give that a try. It ended up to be a huge epic adventure because there were thunderstorms the night before, there were some thunderstorms that morning, and the roads, the water crossings on the roads were too high, and we had to like cross a stream with a rope. And then
not quite like Glenwood this year, but close.
Right. And then they ended up having to cancel the race in the middle of the race because the reroutes were flooding, and they just kind of hoped everybody could get back to the start again. And it turned out to be like the most fun biking experience I had ever had, and I was hooked on it from there. So that's how I made the transition to gravel from mountain biking.
Oh wow! So do you remember what year you first started mountain biking?
It was maybe around like 2010 or something like that.
Oh, so not that long ago. Like this,
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Something like that.
Because I mean, gravel is kind of new. So
yeah.
All right. So you've got about 10 years, 12 years of riding experience in kind of organized stuff. Okay, that kind of gives me a picture. Ashley, how about you? How did you get started in cycling?
Yeah, you bet. So my husband and I I would describe us as endurance triathletes. So we kind of got into cycling just because we started to do triathlons. So basically just started training, going on the tri bike, kind of around Lincoln, just figuring out how to train and then how to train safely. So if you want to get more than 10, 15 miles, you kind of got to go out on the highway. So, we were going out on kind of these busy 4-lane highways, getting passed by semis going 80 miles an hour. And I don't know if it's as you get older, maybe I'd like to think I'm getting wiser, but you're like, maybe this isn't the smartest thing that I'm doing right now, is I'm trying to go really fast and it's just kind of chaotic. And my Garmin computer is just beep, 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 with all these people passing me. So, we live in Lincoln. So of course we heard of Gravel Worlds, and during COVID, there wasn't any races going on. So it was just really a nice way to kind of get out in nature. we kind of just started to explore. Gravel became more popular, you know, in the last couple years. So kind of we had hybrid kind of bikes we started going, and we got gravel bikes and just really have enjoyed it. It's so much quieter. We feel like it's so much safer going out on gravel. So we did Gravel Worlds last year. That was kind of our first gravel race. And then
what distance did you do?
we did the 75 last year, and then I did the 150 this year. And I think a friend of ours had mentioned this Iowa Gravel Series last summer. So we kind of had been keeping our eye on it this winter, saw the sign up opened, and we just thought, honestly, it's a really great way to change up our triathlon training just for variety and just keep getting more race experience. So signed up for Iowa this year and had a lot of fun.
Oh, cool. So when did you start doing those triathlons? Was that like, I'm trying to kind of get an idea of like how long you've been there.
Yep. Probably about 10, I would say 10 years ago. This summer would be 10 years ago, where we kind of we did a sprint triathlon, then we did an Olympic, and then we signed up for a full Ironman, which I would not recommend. But we did it, and it kind of been hooked ever since.
Which Ironman did you complete it?
Yep, we did Coeur d'Alene.
Okay.
That would have been 9 years ago. And right now, kind of just sticking with the 70.3 distance. That's kind of my comfort zone. But next year, I'm thinking a full Ironman again. So, and I think gravel is a great way to train. Just Nebraska's more flat. Gravel has elevation, so it's great.
Yeah, that's true. I've done a half Ironman,
Nice.
and just the amount of training that took to go into that and feel like I could actually complete and everything took a lot of time. And so I've kind of like, I like to do big things, but I've kind of written off the Ironman area just because I'm like, I just don't want to train that long. Like,
yeah. Yep. I would consider it a part-time job, the equivalent of, you know,
Wow.
we work a 40-hour week, and then it's kind of like just the other thing. Thankfully, my husband and I do it, you know, together. So training, we don't do it, you know, not the same speed, but at least it's not one of us is at home and the other one's out training, leaving the other one at home. So
yeah, because we talked to Jake Johnson, who's been on the podium several times on the series, and he came from Ironmans and stuff, and he said it's just lonely. It can be really lonely.
Yeah.
But Coeur d'Alene is gorgeous. I love that area. I'm very grateful for that area. I fell in love with my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but my girlfriend. Actually, she wasn't even my girlfriend at the time. Anyways, good memories about Coeur d'Alene that I'll have to come. Maybe we'll hit on in some time in the future. But let's get to Laura first before we go on to that. Laura, tell me about your first experiences on a bike. What do you remember?
I guess in a more recent time frame, my like doing it more as a hobby and less as like me as a kid on a bike. I started out doing cross racing. There's a pretty cool, at least back in, I don't know, when did I start doing that? Like 2015, maybe 16, somewhere in there. 17, I don't remember. Anyway, they had a pretty cool organized organization that put on cross races here in Lincoln. They had, I think, Star City Cross. I don't remember. Anyway, I did a lot of that to begin with, and that's kind of how I got more into the competitive side of cycling. There was some really cool group that I trained with, and I mean, training is kind of a loose term, but I went on rides with them, and I tried to keep up and kind of really got into it through that. Met a really good friend that encouraged me to do some more events and try some different things, like doing mountain biking or doing gravel riding and things like that. And so that's how I kind of got into it a bit more. I kind of have a bit of a competitive spirit, so I enjoyed, kind of kind of just exploring.
For those listening at home, we just got a very quick blur of fur across the camera. Laura's cat is gorgeous.
She's here too. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so I just got into it through that. And I kind of started doing more events this year. I did some mountain biking events here in Lincoln, and I've done a few more gravel events this year too. So I did the I can't remember, the solstice ride in Beatrice, Glenwood, and then I'll be doing, there's a race in Ashland called the Gravel Groveler.
Yeah, that's put on by Mike Merritt. I was actually just talking to him this morning. So yeah, maybe I can get this up in time for people to do that. That is a great fun race. It's a neat format. Have you done that before, Laura?
Yeah, I did it for the first time last year. So it was a lot of fun. Because
for those that do you know how the points and how the scoring and all that? Do you know how the format works?
Yeah, kind of. Just based on what they have on the website, anyway. So basically, it's east of the Platte River versus west of the Platte River. And so last year we wore like scarves. I don't remember. There's a more technical term for those, but colored scarves to like for them to see which side you're on. And points are awarded based on how you finish. And so the team with the lowest points wins. And I know east of the Platte River had a really long winning streak. And then for the first time, I guess, in a while, west won last year. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Or actually, I'm wondering if it was the other way around. Wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know.
I think it's Lincoln's like this great showing from Lincoln. It's west of the Platte River.
Oh, okay, I don't remember.
And Lincoln like blows every. Oh no, you're fine. I think you could be totally right. The only reason I wonder about that is because I rode it last year for the first time, and because I'm in Iowa, nice. I'm like, well, I guess I'm east of the Platte River, so I rode for the east, and we actually took it that time. So I was like, yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you remember correctly. It's been a long day.
Someone will correct us in the comments. We'll find out.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've gotten into cycling. You've got about 10 years of experience and stuff like that, or 8 or so. Coming in from slightly different areas: triathlon, cyclocross, mountain biking, and then kind of a mix in this. So I'm curious for you, like what's been really helpful for you to get involved in cycling and to stay with it? Like what and why stick with gravel? What have you found there that you're like, I really like this. I'm going to keep doing things like this. What keeps bringing you back?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. I feel like just kind of my previous training, it would be I had maybe 2 options, of roads that I could train on. And living in Lincoln, living in Nebraska, same, I'm in Iowa. Both my husband and I go, why haven't we discovered gravel earlier? Like, we've lived in Nebraska our whole lives. We're surrounded by gravel. I grew up on a farm, driving gravel every day. And we're like, how did we not think to ride our bikes on gravel roads? You did it as a kid, and then you go away and move to the city or whatever. And so I really enjoy that the trails and roads are endless. I can do a different path every weekend if I want to, and see different, parts of around Lincoln. We can drive to another state and find gravel roads. We've been to Kansas, all that. And it's just fun to mix it up and have some variety. And just being able, we feel like I'm kind of strapped to the trainer a lot, training during the week. So I love just getting outside and exploring new roads.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds kind of similar. It's a similar story that I hear, is that like gravel has kind of opened up so much possibility for folks, which is great. As someone who didn't grow up in Iowa and didn't grow up, like I grew up in suburbia, Utah, everything was pavement, and yet I still had a mountain bike because I wanted to go up in the mountains. And that was kind of my gravel experience doing these fire roads. Take me back. What was it like for you as kids out in gravel areas and getting out on your bike, and like was that something that you did and you remember and have good memories of as a kid, or was it or was that kind of a hard thing for you? Maybe Karmen gave a little bit of a twinkle in her eye, so I'm wondering if she's got a thought there.
The one thing when you talked about growing up on a farm, so many of the people that I hear that grew up on a farm were like, I hated riding my bike on the gravel roads and I don't ever want to do that. And so it makes me smile that now you're like, hey, wow, these gravel roads are so great to ride on.
Yeah. It's funny how those change. Laura, did you grow up on a gravel road area, or was this kind of new to you?
I grew up in more kind of your style, suburbia. I mean, we lived kind of in a developing area of Omaha, where I'm from originally. So there were gravel roads around. I didn't really live terribly nearby any of them, or at least not near enough that my parents would let me go over there. But since we were living in like a developing neighborhood, my brother and I would like ride around like the open lots, like that didn't have houses yet. And then occasionally we would ride on like big dirt piles that appeared after they started building the houses. So more off-road type of riding. But I kind of discovered gravel more when I came to Lincoln.
So would you describe yourselves as adventurous as kids, or would you describe yourself as a little bit more like conservative, like, or even like, I don't know, how would you describe young you?
I would describe, I think, myself a little bit as a little more adventurous and competitive. When you talked about riding on the dirt piles and things, I remember on my pink banana seat bike, I would come flying down the sidewalk, and there was like a little bump up into our yard, and I would ride up that, and then our garage was really close, like maybe there was 4 feet max wide between our two garages. It was dirt, and then there was like maybe the height of a cement block on the end, and I'd race down the sidewalk, pop up on the grass, fly through between the garages, and boop, off that little jump. Awesome. And I just thought I was that. And one time my brother and I went together and bought this total rinky-dink helmet of some sort at the neighbor's garage sale. And then we thought we were extra cool because we could ride with a helmet even.
Nice.
Yeah.
Back in the day when like riding with a helmet was rare, you're like, wait, you've got a helmet? That's new.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was too big and it wobbled on our head, and it's great.
I like in my head, what I see is the pink bike with banana seat and you with like a motorcycle helmet with like no visor on it or something like that. That's
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Ashley, how would you describe yourself?
Yeah, so I'm probably the opposite of Karmen. Not athletic, not outdoorsy. I was a music theater kid, piano and sang, and grew up on a farm, but you know, I feel like I probably didn't appreciate it. I wanted to live in town with my friends. So I actually really didn't even find sport, triathlon, cycling, honestly, probably, you know, until my adult life. I learned how to swim as an adult. My husband got me my first, I had a bike as a kid, but you know, I thought I was going to die when he told me to get cycling shoes that clipped in. And the first time, you know, you fall over, it was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. You know, why am I doing
I love
this?
that everybody's like nodding their head because everybody's had that experience,
right?
Where they've been in and they're like, here's my shoes, and everybody has fallen over.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes. So I've discovered all of this probably honestly in the last 15 years, you know, after I got married, and it's been really fun, and it's kind of a little bit kind of also just got me more into health and fitness, and I feel like it's really good for my mental health, just all of it. So it's been a fun adventure.
So Laura, what was younger Laura? How would your parents or siblings describe you?
I think I probably was a bit more adventurous than I like to think when I was younger. But I remember myself being, you know, relatively, you know, conservative, I guess, in a lot of things, just like fitness wise, probably. My mom was really big into fitness, but my brother and I rode bikes outside, and yeah, we rode on the dirt piles. I remember that. That was pretty cool. But for the most part, I didn't really do sports. I did band, which I got competitive with more or less, but you know, it's high school band, so you try to have fun. Marching band was always fun, but I really didn't. I think I kind of grew into my own more so when I got to college, I guess, is, you know, you're exposed to more things and new people and whatnot. And so that's where I kind of, discovered cycling and how I like cycling. And I met a lot of cool people who also rode bikes and that sort of thing. So
I feel like as I get to know more cyclists, especially people that end up on the podium or whatever, I think it's funny. I think people see from afar those that aren't being on a bike, and even some of the folks that were at the park at Glenwood afterwards are like, wow, like all these amazing cyclists, they've got this like all this cool kit, and they must be super pro and everything. And in my head, I'm like, no, these are just band geeks and farm kids with dorky helmets and folks that are just new that fall over when they get their shoes or someone, you know, it's a very welcoming experience. And so as much as we try to look cool and we try to, you know, train hard or work hard and everything, like it's really a place where there's just a bunch of dorks that get together and we have a ton of fun on our bikes and have a chance to push ourselves, and we're just trying to keep our mental state in place. So I hope that's something that I can figure out how to like get that message out to more people, because I think it makes it a little bit more approachable when you think of, you know, all these crazy cyclists. But maybe that's actually a good way to transition to the next topic, which is around training. Yeah, because I think that there's kind of a purposefulness, at least that I've put into having the gravel series be mainly like 60 miles with a, like in some cases, a 30-mile option, is that I'm not quite yet set up in such a way to just, if someone who's like, oh, this is my first day on a bike, I thought I'd try this, like we're probably not that type of event yet. You need to have a little bit of fitness and things. So I'm curious, what do you do? What have you learned? What are you learning lately about training, and how are you doing that to kind of prepare to do these events and feel like you do okay, if that is what you're doing? Because sometimes you just sign up for an event and you're like, I signed up, I'm going to show up. And I've certainly done that myself, where I'm like, I'm just going to eat my way through this event and see how far I get. So I'll kind of maybe by raise of hands, who feels like they trained the least for the Glenwood Gravel this year? All right, everybody feels like they're
one.
Yeah, everybody feels like they were prepared. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so we'll start again with Karmen here and go in that order. Karmen, how do you prepare for a race? What's kind of your training routine right now?
Well, I've got a coach, and Julie Kirkpatrick with Zoom Performance is my coach, because I don't want to have to think or figure out anything about what I'm doing. And I found that when I follow the best I can what she recommends, then that things work out pretty well for me. And so I can count on her for that. The thing that I've learned the most in these last 2 years is just how much I need to eat along the way, and that I hadn't been eating enough. And so I really munched my way through the race, and it worked out well for me.
So qualify that, like what was not enough and what is enough now, and if you can, because I think, and granted, like everybody's a little bit different, but if you can kind of pull that curtain back a little, I think people sometimes are surprised how little they're eating, and surprised on how much you really do. One of the benefits of being on doing endurance events is you just get to eat tons of fun stuff.
So I've this year I did later in the year I did a combination of like a goo roctane in a bottle, some gels, and then real food like Pop-Tarts. And I really liked the those, like they were like fig bars that you had at the checkpoints.
Yeah, someone, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but someone just requested those. And I'm like, yeah, I can make that happen.
So that kind of, the real food has been a big help for me, as adding that into a few of the other sports drinks kinds of things. And that I have to eat whether I feel hungry or not. And I can't wait until I'm like, oh, I think I need some food. So
you're like, are you like every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes? Like when do you say, okay, I'm going to eat at this point?
I'm sipping on my sports drink like every 10 minutes. I set a timer on my Garmin every 10 minutes for me to take a drink, because otherwise I forget to drink. And then I set a timer for an hour to have some real kind of food. But I think I would even be better served to set my timer for a half hour for some real food in there. So that's how I've had to do it, because I can't count on. And I've learned that if I start to feel sad or like this really sucks and who do I think I am to be out here even trying to do this, that's a real good sign that I need to have something to eat. So like my coach phrased it well for me, and she said, if your mind starts to waver from anything other than the finish line, eat. And that's worked really well for me.
Seems like really good advice. I like that. Okay, so coach, which is great. I think people underutilize coaching. I think coaches help out a ton. So we'll kind of shift over here a little bit to Ashley. Ashley, what are you doing to train, and what are you learning?
Yeah, so primarily right now, I'm still training or when I did the Iowa series I did 3 70.3 Ironman races this year. So obviously all my training was primarily Ironman triathlon based. But I also have a coach. So I'm coached by called Trimarni. It's a husband and wife out of Greenville, South Carolina. So a lot of it's just Training Peaks has my training plan. And I agree with Karmen. I love that I don't have to think about it. I've been there in the past where I'm looking online and trying to find training plans. And I think you always have that doubt of, am I doing the right thing? Am I not? And I'm also just a very, as most athletes are, type A structure personalities. At least I am anyway. So it's just nice to have that structure and know kind of what I'm supposed to be doing. So what I kind of did is looked at these gravel races as just a way kind of to spice up my training. You know, Saturdays are always long bike days anyways. And just get in that race mindset, because sometimes if you only race big 3 times a year, well, there's 2 months that go by in between those. And it was just really nice to kind of keep in that race mindset of, okay, those little pre-race nerves, you know, what does that feel like? And what is your pre-race breakfast going to be? And like Karmen said, fueling, and just, I think they're a great opportunity. And I would just throw in, Chris, you know, for when we go to Ironman races, we're having to fly and travel. So it's been really nice for you doing this in Iowa, you know, being able to not always have to go to a hotel, travel, spend money on a flight, money in hotels. It's been great to just be able to drive, you know, that morning. So kudos to you for, I know I've been a race director in other jobs and things, and it's not easy. So, you know, kudos to you for making that happen, because it is appreciated to race local and have those local opportunities. So, yeah, I just kind of threw in the gravel events just to spice up training, you know, and then just, again, be in that race mode when I could be.
Yeah, because I mean, with an Ironman, you're looking at a 100-mile ride. That's, even if you're really fast in a great TT position, that's 4 hours plus. And so 60 miles on gravel, you're 15 miles an hour. You might be looking at kind of, I think I think this group was probably closer to 5 hours with the rain and everything that we had. So a little bit of a longer training ride, but maybe that is about comparable to what you needed for a Saturday long ride.
Yeah, and I would say gravel cycling has made me a stronger triathlon cyclist. Just I feel like my power is getting better. Like I said, here in Nebraska, we don't have a lot of elevation if you stay on the highways. So gravel, it's a lot easier to get that elevation that sometimes you need in training.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, well, I'm glad that this is helping. I'm glad it's helping out with a lot of people's other goals, and that's, as a race director, I'm not looking to compete against the Lifetimes or the Unbounds or the Gravel Worlds and things like that, because I mean those people have full-time staff and everything, and I'm looking for an opportunity pretty much to just go with my boys and have a weekend where we go camping and do something fun and see folks. So I'm fitting in and trying to find the right ways that we're supporting your goals is something I'm interested in. So Laura, that kind of brings us to you. What are some of your goals, and what are you training, and how are you structuring your training right now?
My training, I would call, is very informal. Now that you guys are talking about coaches, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, because I would like more structure in mine. I tend to like to feel like I've worked a lot, and so I tend to push myself probably more than I should as a result, which has really worked to my detriment in gravel races sometimes, because I end up putting in more effort than I should and getting kind of worn out, which is why cross was kind of a cool thing, because cross you just go as hard as you can for like half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever the case is. But obviously that isn't really the case with gravel. And so the past year I've kind of really honed in on that, and really kind of set myself to finding a good pace for myself. And generally, like in a week, kind of like what Ashley said, I do a couple days, since I work really early in the mornings. I do a couple days on the trainer. And then Saturday I do a longer bike ride. And then I kind of offset that with doing like some HIIT workouts and stuff, like some very light kind of strength training, I guess. And I don't really build, I mean, like, I'm not really in it for, building muscle or anything, but it does like kind of help with climbing hills. I think I found I that's kind of one of my favorite, I guess it's my favorite, love kind of thing. But I've really found it makes a difference in climbing hills, especially at Glenwood. So, yeah,
well,
how that goes.
So, just out of curiosity, is for I guess I don't know what the Coeur d'Alene routes look like and things. Is Glenwood? Would you say that Glenwood is like one of the hillier things around here, or was it? Or was this something kind of like more par for the course? I mean, does it feel like a local ride, or does it feel different?
Feels different.
I think it's way harder than what we have around Lincoln.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I think the closer over to where I live, like the races that they have up in Northeast Iowa, or like the Spotted Horse south of Des Moines, they have a lot of climbing, and it seems like it's steeper. Like
Glenwood's feel steeper, or other ones feel steeper?
Other ones feel steeper. So I liked Glenwood because I'm like, wow, there's a lot of hills, but they're not so, at least not as many like this.
Yeah, because it's not the little rollers. But I try to. Okay, good. Just to qualify that, yes, it's hilly, but it's not too crazy comparatively.
It's not like 10% grade after 10% grade after 10% grade for as long as you can see.
Yeah. Okay, so qualifying that a little bit, Laura, coming back to like your love for climbing, how do you? Is it a love, or do you find that you're good at it and you practice that? Like, what are you doing to train for hills, or is it just natural? God-given ability?
I doubt it's that one. I think I don't train for it specifically, but I feel like having a training plan, I guess, that is so unstructured. I think it almost happens without my intention. Like it almost happens by accident. Like I said, I do some strength stuff during the week. A lot of it is based on legs, or has a lot of leg components in it. And so I think as a result that in combination with on the bike, I usually do like a sprint day on the trainer, at least for the past year. I do a sprint day, and then another day is kind of like a more steady state kind of day. And usually I try to increase the resistance, fairly heavy for part of my workouts. I kind of vary it a little bit. So I don't know if any of those things potentially result in me getting more strength in my legs and then being a little bit more favored, like even in my head toward hills. But yeah, I think it's probably the fact that I've noticed that I feel good on hills and I know that I can go up them. And so probably more that route is that I've felt good on them. I noticed that I can do them relatively well. So more so than flats.
And sometimes it's just perception, right? It was totally fine. Like placebos are a great way to be really good at something, right? Sometimes you're just like, you know what, I'm comfortable in this. I can get into whatever I need to do and just like get it done. So that's great.
I just thought about it too, that the two of the gravel series races that I've done was last year was Pisgah and this year was the Glenwood. And the one piece of those that I had a fly around here that I thought was especially fun was you had all of the hills, but then you had that just pancake flat river bottom. So you could like feel like a rock star I could feel more like a rock star than on that for a little while before it got smacked with the hills again. So I like that combination.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was looking forward to that.
Good. For me, the routes that I design, I'm never trying to destroy people. My goal is to make it fun. And so I kudos to Gravel Worlds and kudos to everybody down in Kansas and everything. And they've got these big, long, amazing routes and everything. But if I go straight for too long, I'm like, I want something else. So I'm always looking for curvy, windy, different terrain, climbing up long descents, and then if possible, arranging for a long section so you have a tailwind, which usually happens at Glenwood. I don't know how much it felt like a tailwind with all the rain and things that we got, and we probably should dip into that a little bit. I'm curious, did you three even see each other during the race? How did it go?
I don't know.
Ashley, I think at one point, I think you passed me, and that's all I saw.
So
I never saw you, Laura.
So it was pretty spread out. Laura, what do you remember? What was your experience kind of in the front there? Were you with another group, or were you pretty solo throughout? What was your experience?
I kind of kept with a certain group. I mean, there were riders that I kept up with, or like we ended up passing each other. But for a lot of it, it was just me. Which honestly, I'm used to riding on my own. So it was just something I was used to. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, and hopefully this isn't an embarrassing thing, but I thought this was kind of fun. Laura, was it you that had a situation with your helmet?
Yeah. Yep, that was me. Race day morning, I was like, check, got this, left without my helmet. So Lincoln is, like an hour-ish drive, to Glenwood. And I got there and I'm like, oh no, the one thing I forgot, and it happens to be something I absolutely need. So Chris was amazingly generous and offered me to use his helmet, which is the best thing that could have happened that day. So, thank you.
You're welcome, but at the same time, like I'm glad you asked for it and needed it, and I'm glad we had it available, and that was great. But I just want to say, I guess, two things. One, I think that's the only time my helmet's ever been on a podium, so thank you for making that happen. I really appreciate that.
It'll happen. You still got time.
Yeah, and two, I'm so glad you don't know how bad I sweat.
You know what? It got washed out with the rain, so it's fine.
Oh, I'm glad it worked out, and I was so excited when you did come across the finish line at the end, and I'm like, yeah, we made sure that was a great day, and it worked out. So I think Glenwood is the only race where I don't remember the first year, but the second year and this third year, I've had to lend out equipment. Last year, someone was lining up at the start line, and I think literally saw her sunglasses break, and she was wearing the same like XX2i sunglasses that I have. So I'm like, here you go. And she's like, perfect, these work out. So I've somehow made it a tradition to lend out some of my equipment at Glenwood. So I guess next year I'll need to just make sure all my gear is right there, just in case.
Yeah.
Seems
like it. So
just weird coincidences.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't want this to go too long. You've been fantastic. I think actually, before we wrap up, Ashley and Karmen, you said you passed once, and that was it. What else, Ashley? What do you remember from the race? Were you with a group, or were you pretty much alone?
You know, kind of towards the beginning, I feel like my strategy is always to kind of ease into it. So I probably fall kind of, to the back of the pack starting, and then I like to kind of build as I go. So, you kind of always bounce back and forth between a few people, and then you either lose them or they pull away. So I was maybe with the same couple of guys for maybe kind of around the majority. We ran into I saw the one gal flip over on her bike in the bridge.
This was Nancy Bowery, right? Yeah.
So I was like, man, that gal's going strong. We were going through that like cornfield where we had to get over because it was too muddy. So we kind of had to get over in the like grassy part. And I was like, man, she's going strong. I'm just going to keep pedaling, try to stick on her wheel. And she was a little bit ahead of me, and then she went on that bridge, and I just saw her flip. And then her wheel got stuck. So she was kind of stuck. So I stopped, and thankfully then the guy behind me stopped too. So we could kind of get her up, and she ended up finishing that thing. I mean, she's a warrior. After
her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because she got somehow like stuck because her wheel was stuck in the bridge. Her leg was kind of stuck, and thankfully the guy behind me came. Otherwise, I don't know if I could have gotten her out. So then we a group met up, and then we kind of went. But I felt really lonely on one road that was really muddy, and I'm like, that's when you question your decisions. What am I doing? And then you see a couple of people ahead, and you're like, okay, I can do this. There's other people out here. I'll be fine.
Just speaking of Nancy, who I've ridden with, she was part of a group called the Limestoners, and she's ridden with Karen, a friend of mine as well, and they're great. They've done several of the races, but from what I understand, she hit. I can't remember if it was a distraction or what. The bridge was somewhat okay. Maybe there was a gap. I can't remember. But when she went down, her leg got pinned between her handlebars and her thigh, essentially, and so it was kind of jammed in there. And so the only way to get it out was basically to like to poke into her thigh even more. I think that it was terrible. It was a very difficult moment, and so thank you so much for like helping out. She did do fantastic. She finished strong. I think she was somewhat close to the second aid station at that point, or maybe it was the third, and she asked, everybody's like, hey, are you sure you want to go on? She's like, no, I want to do it. And And so, yeah, Nancy's a beast. She's amazing.
Mhm.
So way to push on.
And it's like all of us, the first thing she said, she's like, I know better. And I was like, yeah, we all do, but it happens to all of us too. It's just, you're looking here and you hit something and, it happens.
Yeah. And Karmen, what was your race experience this last one? What do you remember from?
There was a couple guys that I ended up kind of being back and forth with throughout, and I actually did come up after Nancy had her wreck. Then I ended up coming up on her after she was riding along, and so I guess her misfortune was my gain, because otherwise I don't think I would have ended up catching her. I just remember really embracing the aid stations. That sounds weird, but it was always so exciting for me to see the people at the aid stations, and the aid station at the end of that flat area where it was the family with the two kids.
Yeah.
And
Gerald and oh shoot, I'm forgetting Gerald's wife's name. And their two boys, they're twins. They are just full of energy. They are so great.
And they had on their t-shirts and shorts and cowboy boots, and it was just, they were so excited. That was really energizing for me. And just that, I remember thinking, I can't believe it's raining again. Because the reason, one of the big reasons I signed up for the race was because the weekend before I rode for 5 hours in the rain at a race. And when I looked at the forecast for Glenwood, it was going to be 85 and sunny. And I'm like, I'm on it. And
it looked so good up until like the day of. Like, I was sitting there kind of thinking, okay, 30% chance of rain. That's, we've had that before in the forecast, and usually it's a little sprinkle and then it's fine. But it did not get any better that day. So kudos to you also for everyone that ended up, being able to quickly change the route on their Garmin, because I know the course was not marked as well as I like to have it. I know there were some issues there, but changing the course to the last minute kind of made that tricky. So also kudos to you on your navigation abilities to get through that. What do you do? I guess take me into, maybe real quick, this will be my last question. We can leave it as the parting thing. Like, what is that mindset for you when things are kind of going a little bit wrong, when the weather's starting to hit, when things are trying to, changing right there at the start line? Take me back, to that point, and what were you thinking, and how did you kind of be like, no, this is okay, I can go? Like, what is that mindset that you get into?
Yeah, I'll just jump in, I guess. I think everybody goes through these moments of like, this is so awesome. And then you go through like, what am I doing? Like, this stinks. Like, I'm paying and choosing to do this. But I think we all remember, like, when you cross that finish line, it feels so good. And I just what I like to say to myself is, I can do hard things. We're meant to do hard things, and it feels good to do hard things. And I love just, that sense of accomplishment after you do cross that finish line. And yes, it's really hard, but it shows us that we're capable of more than sometimes that we think we are. And I would say Glenwood would be a race that it was like, I was questioning, going up like, man, it's raining. Like, I had just done a half Ironman the weekend before, and I'm like, the weekend after a race, I just want to chill, and I'm supposed to be on my happy ride, like super easy. So then, okay, yeah, it was hard, but man, like, I can look back and be like, that was a really good accomplishment. And I think that always helps us to conquer new hard things in the future too, because sometimes you prove to yourself that you can do it, in a race. In a situation like that proves it. You can't quit. I mean, you can, but I think we all agree we're all competitive, and we don't want to. So it gives us that opportunity to put us in those situations where you're not going to quit. You got to fight through. And then it shows you, man, I can do this. I'm really capable. So.
Yeah. I like that mantra. I can do hard things. Laura, Karmen, what was your mindset, and what worked for you?
Well, I was kind of anxious about not knowing exactly which route that we were going to use at first, but I'm like, would tell myself, you know how to work your Garmin, you know how to load whichever course it is, you know how to do that, you will be able to do that. Trust your unit and that kind of thing. And you've ridden in the rain before. It's not what you were hoping for, but you know how to do it. And then at one point in the race, I had the same thoughts as Ashley did about, why am I doing this? This is foolish. And then I'm like, I think I need to have something to eat. And so I had something to eat. And then in about 5 minutes, I'm like, remember how exciting it was for you when you first started doing this and it was a total rain disaster kind of race? And I'm like, yeah, it was cool. And then at the end, I was in the parking lot and I don't know what his name was. I think he's from around Boone, and he had a beard, and his wife was taking pictures of him being a total muddy mess.
Oh, Manny Acevedo.
And I said, we never take pictures of ourselves when we're clean. And he's like, no, because there's no accomplishment in that. This is accomplishment. I was like, right. We accomplished way more than that. And so that partly now in my beginning, when it's not ideal conditions, is I'm going to be like, think what a great feeling of accomplishment this is going to be when you make it through.
Yeah, that is great. Yeah. That great accomplishment. Laura, what was your mindset?
So the beginning, like the rain was fine. And when it wasn't fine, but it's like you're like, it was raining when I was getting up, driving there, and I knew there was rain in the forecast. So I was kind of prepared myself mentally for that. And races, I was just kind of in a mindset of, just pace yourself, stay the course kind of thing. And, the other thing that motivated me a lot is like the same thing that these two amazing women said, was that, it feels so good when you cross the end. And that's what that's kind of in the tough moments. That's what motivated me the most was how good it's going to feel. And that's kind of just like working out in general for me. It's just like, I feel so much better when it's over. The perk, or like one of my favorite things, I guess, about Glenwood is that the scenery was so beautiful. And especially I think the raininess and kind of the cloudiness on that day almost made it more beautiful, because it had some really cool skies and different colors and things, and I really enjoyed seeing that. And the different routes, like even going through the cornfield, it was really tough, obviously, just riding in the grass when it was kind of muddy, but even that had its own kind of beauty to it, and so that was really fun, and that kind of helped with the some of the harder things. So I ashamedly got I don't know, I got a little angry, I guess. I would say, but
and that's okay. Take us there. What got you angry? How did you use that? What or not?
I guess I used it to push me toward the finish line, I suppose. It's just like, I'm not going to turn back. I'm in this. I'm going to get there, one way or another. Publicly, I want to say I'm sorry to some of the folks at the one of the aid stations. I feel like I was a little curt with them, and I didn't mean to be. So that they are doing a great job. But there was just some really hard moments, and sometimes I deal with things outwardly and it makes me feel better. But yeah.
Well, No one said anything, and
Okay, great.
they all talk to me. I always ask them, how is everybody treating you, because that is a big deal, you know. But at the same time, something that we do talk about usually with the aid station, I'm like, look, these people are doing hard things, and sometimes they might be really, really frustrated, and the best you can do is just be fast and help them out and cheer them on and see if they can keep going. And so kudos to you for channeling that and and moving forward.
I felt really bad. No, they all did such a great job and were very helpful. So.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, this hearing from you and learning from you has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I hope anybody listening to this sees and has an opportunity to say, "Oh, wow, this is a strong group of individuals, and I can join them." Like as I think, as competitive and as accomplished and as stubborn maybe you are, I also know in the interactions that I've seen with you on the podium and other things, you are kind and you are careful and you're willing to pick somebody up when they fall down. It doesn't matter about the race. That's more important. And I think that's the other thing that makes the Iowa Gravel Series, gravel in general, that community that says we want everyone to be here. And the podium's there because that's a fun component part of it, but there's a lot to it else. So thank you so much for living those kind of gravel, spirit of gravel values. And we're not quite sure what that is, but thank you for embodying that so much.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts before we kind of wrap this up? Anything that you've been on your mind or you'd like to say?
I just say
come and join. Don't be intimidated.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Cool.
If we can do it, anybody can do it.
True.
Or I'll speak for myself. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Doing that. Doing that.
Well, perfect. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much. And we will see you, everyone, again on another episode of the Podium Podcast when we come back next season. So catch you later.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.